Everybody, thanks again for joining us today. Like I said, my name is Kelly Mann, and I'm the Director of Programs with A Time to Heal. We just wanted to start off by thanking our title sponsor, Nebraska Cancer Specialist. They sponsor each of our Create Your Best Life events, including our session today. For more information, you can visit their website at nebraskacancer.com. Joining us today, we have Kimarie Knowles. Kimarie is a licensed clinical social worker whose area of expertise is in cancer and bereavement support. She has worked in the field of psycho-oncology for 15 years and has extensive clinical understanding of the needs of patients and caregivers through the disease continuum, from initial diagnosis through treatment to end of life, survivorship, recurrence, chronic illness, and bereavement. Kimarie has worked with patients and families in a variety of ways, including individually and one-on-one therapy, couples and family therapy, and group work. And we're very, very fortunate to have her join us today. Thanks, Kimarie.
Thank you so much, and hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here and have this conversation with you. Just to start off, really today we're going to be talking about survivor guilt in cancer survivorship. And I was just before everyone came in, was talking to Kelly and Brenda, and really let them know, like, this came out of the work that I was doing with individuals post-treatment. So I was hearing from folks as I was working with them in individual counseling or in some of the support groups that I was running, this understanding of guilt or this survivor guilt that was coming up. And so at the time, probably about 10 years ago, a colleague of mine at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where I used to work, and I just decided to try to understand it better. So we started to do some research and really basically tried to understand what was happening historically, kind of what is survivor guilt. Theoretically, what might be going on, right? Why do theorists and researchers think individuals are suffer from this feeling? And then what do we do about it, right? How do we help? And so that's really what we're going to be talking about today. Before we start, I'm going to kind of jump in and out of the PowerPoint because I really do want to make this a interactive discussion. So before we start, I just wanted to kind of check in to see if there was anything that anyone wants to bring up before we jump in of things that they really want to focus on around this topic. If there anything that really drew them to it today.
It's a topic I don't know. I know very little about, and I was interested in hearing the information.
Thanks.
For me, I've been NED for 2 years. I am the only one of all of the people that I met during chemo that got to this point. Every single person is still in treatment. I've lost 4 of them this year. 2, one just entered hospice this week, another one's heading that way. And it's very hard to deal with because when they go to the doctor, it's like, oh, this isn't working. This is, these are people that I deal with on a daily basis. And it's like, oh, my treatment isn't working. They're pulling me into the next thing. We're doing this. For me, it's like, I go to the doctor and it's like, I just got moved into my 6-month checkups because everything is still clear and everything's working. And it's just like, I feel, I know they want to know about it, but I feel bad because it's like, well, here I am. And why is it me that, they're getting ravaged and beaten up and killed from this beast. And here I am on the other side of it. And it's hard to, it's hard for me to want to celebrate I feel bad celebrating what I'm going through, knowing what they're going through.
Thank you, Marilyn. I think you just pinned, the way that you described that this struggle with survivor guilt it's just beautifully described. And I think I saw a lot of heads nodding as you were talking.
Yes, I think that was perfect. I'm Leah. I am not putting my camera on because I didn't do my hair and makeup before this today. I am 9-year survivor, a part of an ovarian cancer group. And ovarian cancer does, the odds are pretty slim when people are diagnosed. In years past, it's gotten better. And I'm part of a group where when I started, we have lost a majority of our members. People have passed. And because I have the BRCA gene mutation, I have since found out that my cousin, a 35-year-old cousin, was diagnosed. She did not find out about the gene mutation soon enough. And now her triple negative breast cancer has spread and she's stage 4 brain cancer. So I'm trying to cope with the guilt, like Marilyn said, that the guilt of why me? She's got a 3-year-old, and trying to help her through it, and yet feeling guilty. I think that's a lot of it. And it's hard to celebrate your wins when other people are fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
So I would like,
But-
and I would like to share this if it's possible with our group, because we do have survivors, that or people that have been fighting for 15 years. So I would love to share this with our group if possible.
Thank you so much. I'm going to jump in. I know that each one of you probably has a story like this, and we could spend a whole hour kind of just talking about that. But I want to try to get to some of the information too that I hope might be able to help you. But again, we'll come off every so often to share again. Okay, so as I said, we're going to talk about what survivor guilt is, kind of what it looks like in the cancer population. Talk a little bit about kind of some different perspectives, theoretical perspectives that we can try to understand it, and then ways that we might be able to cope. So as I think you just said, many of you just said, I feel like this quote kind of captures survivor guilt. Oh, my friends, forgive me that I live and you are gone. There's a grief that can't be spoken. There's a pain goes on and on. And so what we know is that survivor guilt is not a diagnosis, right? It's not like depression or anxiety that is in the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual that individuals use. But we also know that it is a condition. It describes a condition of mental and emotional distress experienced by someone who has survived something where others have died or have suffered. We know that often this experience involves fear. It involves a feeling of helplessness. It can involve a threat to life or threat to mortality. And it's basically, as you've been saying, this understanding that it is, in some ways, it's quite normal to feel bad when you have survived an experience where someone else has died or someone else has greatly suffered. So some of the symptoms that we see, some of the things that survivor guilt can look like, they can vary. But what I've often heard, and I think what we heard a little bit in some of the sharing that we just did, is that it's this feeling of doing something wrong just for surviving, right? This feeling of like not being able to celebrate the fact that you are alive because other people have died or other people are still battling their cancer. It's understandable that if feelings of depression, anxiety, self-blame, substance abuse can sometimes come in, as well as just feeling almost like you have to justify your existence. So actually, before I move on, just want to check, are those some of those symptoms that we just put up there? Are people experiencing them? Yes, is there anything that's kind of jumping out from that list?
This is Trisha. I'm dealing with depression that I've not had before.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. You are not alone. Did anything else jump out on that list for others in terms of how they're feeling? Jackie, please.
I don't sleep at all anymore. I don't know how a person can run on so little sleep. I'm like a specter that haunts the house all night long. You know, and what happens is I get tired. We go to bed, I lay down, I fall asleep right away. I'm so tired, but then I wake up immediately wide awake. It's like it just jumps, boom, I'm awake, and then I might as well get up because I'm just going to lay there and fuss. And everything comes back then. Everything swirls in my head. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, I think that the anxiety and ruminations and thoughts that come up in the middle of the night when you can't sleep are some of the most challenging to cope with. Doreen?
I have my video off too. I apologize. I have two concurrent things going. I have felt guilty because I got my breast cancer from taking estradiol and progesterone for depression, and the doctor telling me I was young enough that it shouldn't hurt anything, and I had a tumor in 11 months. But the people who had the triple negative and what they went through, that was where my guilt was coming from. And then I forgot with my chemo fog until this moment that I had a friend who was diagnosed with colon cancer at the same time as me, and then it went throughout her body. And I mean, I don't even know, she made it a year and we were the same age, and I just mourned her. Well, I'll start again, but my concurrent issue is I have a lot of unique side effects from the chemo that actually put me on Social Security disability. And I know you don't want us to go on too long, but anyway, I just went to the doctor and whatnot yesterday, and it's just been hard, and here I am surviving with these goofy things. And I didn't die and I didn't lose my breast, but it's no party either, you know? So
Doreen,
anyway.
I think what you said is so important, because I think sometimes what survivor guilt does, and we'll talk a little bit about this as we go on, is it leads to some sort of guilt or dismissiveness around the struggle that each of you really have, right? That it's almost like, oh, well, if this person has it worse or has died from their disease, that somehow the very real struggles and side effects and ongoing complications of going through treatment, somehow you don't have the right to have a feeling about. Which again, I think that we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'm so glad you brought that up. Okay, so let's kind of move on. So just very briefly, I want to kind of give you the history of survivor guilt. So really, this idea of feeling guilty has been kind of has been discussed really since the late 1800s, early 1900s, starting with Freud, who basically wrote upon his father's death that there was this tendency of self-reproach when someone dies. Then in the 1960s, a theorist named Nederland was studying Holocaust survivors and was really the one that started to name this particular syndrome. He named it survivor syndrome. And he described it as, with some of the people that he was working with, maintaining persistent guilt and a fear of being punished for having lived when their loved ones had perished. And over the past 20 years, it has been used to describe survivors of many different areas: Holocaust survivors, war veterans, survivors of the HIV/AIDS pandemic, survivors of terror attacks, of natural and man-made disasters, bereft caregivers, laid off workers, and the medically ill, including cancer survivors. So I see that there's a few kind of chats. Oh, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's just, I think somebody's microphone that's not working, a participant, so we're good.
Okay, great. So we're going to go in, and what I'd like to do is just talk about kind of when we look at the literature and the research on survivor guilt, there's a number of different theories, a number of different perspectives. I'm going to kind of introduce each perspective, and what I'd like you to do is just see if it resonates with you. See if you think that this might be part of what is within your struggle with survivor guilt. So the first one is this social evolutionary perspective. And basically what this says is that guilt, kind of the feeling of guilt is part of our evolution. And it is what keeps us to be working together in communities, right? That feeling guilty helps us to have pro-social behavior, helps us to have mutual concern and respect for each other, and it kind of keeps people working together. And that part of this is that there's this belief, kind of this underlying belief in our world that things should be fair and equitable, that people should deserve and do deserve fair and equitable treatment, and that it is if there's something is not fair and equitable, then kind of within the community we should make it more fair. People shouldn't get more than their fair share. And so what happens with survivor guilt is that it feels unfair, right? That some people have illness and they have a very difficult time going through treatment. They die from their illness while others don't. And for some people, this can lead to kind of an imbalance, right? Not quite understanding or making sense of this idea of things needing to be fair or equitable. So one theorist uses this idea of depletion guilt. So this basically says that there can be kind of a connection of someone's good fortune being at the expense of someone else's misfortune. So sometimes there can be this kind of survival death connection that one can sometimes feel, oh, if I survived and this person didn't, that somehow that's connected, almost that like I took their spot. No, and even if we cognitively know, well, that doesn't make sense, that's not true, sometimes it's helpful to just look at what kind of our internal beliefs are, right? And so do we operate in a world, right, where we believe that for the most part, everything is fair, everything is equitable. If I try hard, if I work hard, for the most part, things will work out, right? And cancer, unfortunately, can really challenge that, right? That things are not fair, things are not equitable. It doesn't make sense why some people even get cancer, let alone suffer more or less. And so what the guilt that can come in is when it feels that it is unfair and that somehow you kind of have an unfair advantage. So that's one perspective, kind of one theory on what survivor guilt might be. Another theory is this idea of identification and connection. And so, one particular theorist, Vamos, basically looked at this and studied this experience of survivor guilt with individuals with renal disease who were at a dialysis center. And what they found was that those individuals who had a really strong sense of connection, who felt like they were really facing a shared threat or a shared danger, that their lives were really interconnected, could be associated with more survivor guilt. So in some ways, some of the things we know is that having a cancer support community overall is beneficial, right? Having people that you connect with is, for many people, part of the process. In chemotherapy suites, in the hospital, in waiting rooms, you're connecting with people, you're seeing this kind of shared experience. And it can lead to improved quality of life. It can lead to feelings of less isolation, less depression, but it also presents you with this opportunity to feel guilty, because some people might be struggling more than you are. I think we heard at the beginning when I asked for kind of individuals' experiences of survivor guilt, some of these questions, which I kind of term as existential questions, right? Why did I survive? Why did someone else die? What is the meaning of all of this? And so individuals who, if you're suffering from survivor guilt, it's understandable to ask these questions. You know, and often it will, when first diagnosed, sometimes the question is, why did I get cancer? But often as you move through it, the question can change, right? You know, why is my experience, why am I at a place where I'm NED when others are not? And often what happens with some of these existential questions or some of these maybe unanswerable questions is that there can be shoulds, right? And I worked with a psychiatrist who used to call it the tyranny of the shoulds, meaning that every time we have a should or a shouldn't in the way that we're talking about our experience, in the way that we are talking about our survivorship, there's judgment, right? So I should be doing this. I shouldn't be feeling this. Anytime there's that should or shouldn't, then we're judging ourselves, right? And anytime that there's judgment, there's a feeling that we've done something wrong. And so sometimes what happens with these existential questions is, oh, I should be doing, thinking, feeling, saying something different than what I actually am experiencing. I should have greater meaning in my life. You know, I should have changed my life, you know, and so we all hear stories about individuals who go on to raise a ton of money and run marathons and climb Mount Kilimanjaro, right? And that is amazing, right? And that is fantastic, a wonderful way for that individual to have made meaning of their cancer experience. However, the majority of people that I work with just want to go back to their normal life, right? They just want to live their life. And so sometimes there can be this feeling that they should be doing something else, that they should have changed their perspective, or they should just feel something different, and that itself can lead to feelings of guilt. So we can get stuck in these kind of these unanswerable questions, right? These existential questions. Why did I survive? Should I be doing something different? What if I'm not doing something different? And then, oh, I feel guilty because I'm not doing something different. And my friend didn't have the chance to even ask these questions. And the questions themselves are not the problem, right? It's normal to ask these existential questions. It's more that blaming ourselves or judging ourselves when we don't have the answers can lead to this cycle of guilt. And then one of the most important things that I want to spend a little time on before we just open it up to discuss, that I think is so present in most individuals that I've worked with who have survivor guilt, are all of the feelings underneath the guilt. So guilt is this interesting emotion that gives us the illusion of control. Because when we feel guilty, there is this feeling that we can or should do something to rectify, you know, whatever might be happening that we're feeling guilty about. It's like it's an actionable feeling. It makes us feel like there's something to be done, something to fix. And what we know is that the cancer experience often brings up feelings that can be very challenging and difficult to tolerate and sit with. So feelings of powerlessness, feelings of helplessness, a lack of control, fears of death, as well as grief and mourning. So sometimes the guilt helps us feel like we are in more control of the situation. even though it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And so one of the questions that I have when I'm working with individuals or groups is let's look below the guilt, right? What else is there? What other feelings might be below that guilt? You know, and the first one is this idea of powerlessness or helplessness, right? So we know that the cancer experience for many people can bring up these feelings. So, you know, cancer doesn't discriminate. And often when people are going through treatment, it is all up to the medical team, right? We just do what we're told. You go to your treatments. The treatment of the cancer itself is not in your control. And then what happens for many people after treatment is that in this post-treatment kind of post-cancer experience, you're kind of like, all right, go about your life. And you don't have a guide. You don't always have that connection to the medical team or treatment that helps you know exactly what to do to manage this illness, to manage post-treatment, to manage the feelings that you might be having. And so for many people, some of these feelings actually become more intense once they're done treatment. And so it's almost like the guilt can serve as a protection, right? So rather than feeling powerlessness, rather than feeling helpless, rather than feeling out of control, sometimes the guilt can help us feel like, well, we should be doing something. Again, there's that should. And then it gets us into that cycle of you know what we should be doing and then continuing to lead to guilt. So if we go back to like this idea of what is fair and equitable, right? We want things to be fair, we want things to be equitable. You know, for many people, we have this ingrained belief, right? That we should have control, right? Things should be fair, things should be equitable, and we have control over our lives, right? Cancer kind of butts up against some of that, right? So it makes it like challenges what we know about the world. And all of a sudden we have to either change what we know, right? And say, okay, the world is not always fair and equitable, right? And I'm not always in control. Or we say, nope, I'm going to stick by kind of what I know and what I believe. But then we have to kind of make sense of these out of control situations and feelings. And again, guilt can sometimes be one of the ways that we do that. The next kind of emotion or you know struggle that can come up is this idea of death anxiety. And there was a psychiatrist, Irving Yalom, who worked extensively with individuals who were ill and cancer patients and cancer survivors. And he kind of termed this idea of death anxiety. And in one of his books, he had this quote: "It's not easy to live every moment wholly aware of death. It's like trying to stare the sun in the face. You can stand only so much of it." Right. And so what I've seen with individuals I've worked with is this idea that for many of us, prior to a cancer diagnosis, we live with what I would call a veil of denial, right? This kind of this protective idea that distances ourselves from mortality and our own vulnerability as humans. So we can walk around the world and not be afraid of dying all the time. And cancer kind of can take that veil away. So we can be just wholly aware of life's fragility. And that can be absolutely petrifying, right? And so, you know, being aware of your own mortality can be anxiety producing. Seeing and watching others that you're close with can also produce a lot of anxiety, a lot of death anxiety. And again, you know, when we talk about survivor guilt, guilt is an emotion that helps us feel in control. It can help us. So if we have an emotion that feels unbearable or overwhelming, guilt can sometimes come in and help us feel like we have a little bit more control over the situation, even if the guilt itself is distressing. And then finally, the last emotion that I'll talk about, and then we'll kind of open up for some discussion, is grief. So I really believe that kind of underlying a lot of survivor guilt is grief. Grief is an understandable part of the cancer experience. Grief, you can have grief for those that you have gone through treatment with that are no longer with us. You can also have grief for yourself, grief for the life that you had prior to cancer, grief for the losses that you have had, whether that is a physical loss, whether that is a practical loss, like the ability to work in the way that you did, the ability to move in the way that you did, whether that's an emotional loss, just kind of not feeling like you're the same person. It can also hold a commemorative function, right? So if we hold on to the grief, we can kind of hold on to the connection to the person who died. This often was seen in Holocaust survivors, right? That if they let go of the guilt, then they were also letting go of the grief, and they were also letting go of the person that they loved. And I think one of the things that can be really helpful in this process is to look at and really honor your own grief experience, right? What are the things that you have lost in this experience? I think that we talked about this earlier, that sometimes when comparing yourself to others, there's a tendency to invalidate your own losses, invalidate your own experience. And I think, a lot of times what I talk about with individuals is this idea of really using the and, right? Like you can have sadness, anger, frustration, grief about your own cancer, and you can also have gratitude and appreciation that you're alive, and you can also feel horrible that someone else is suffering or has died, right? Like we can have all of these emotions at the same time. I think in our culture, we like to create kind of binary experiences, right? We can either feel happy or we can feel sad. But the reality is, as humans, we can swim in multiple emotions at the same time, right? And I think where guilt comes in sometimes with these conflicting feelings, or what feel like conflicting feelings, is like we hear of someone who maybe has died of their disease, and we feel awful, right? We feel sad, we feel grief-stricken, and there can be that question of why am I here? But maybe also a little bit of relief that you're here, which can feel kind of in conflict, because you can feel relief that you are here at the same time that you feel grief that someone else has died, right? You're not feeling relief that someone has died, but feeling that feeling of relief can all of a sudden be confusing, as well as feeling a whole host of uncomfortable emotions about your own cancer experience. Right. And so often with these conflicting feelings, what I encourage is to almost be more comfortable with all the feelings, right? Like it is okay for us to have all the feelings. And even though it can feel uncomfortable with practice, we can kind of honor the feelings of sadness and grief for the person who may have died, honor our feelings of anger and grief and sadness and frustration with our cancer experience and survivorship experience, as well as honor our feelings of gratitude that we're alive. And one more thought is this idea of what in psychology we would call secondary appraisals. So kind of what do you think about your feelings, right? And so sometimes we'll have a feeling, and then right away we go into what a reaction to that feeling, right? So are you someone who allows yourself to feel anger? Or do you try to tell yourself that it's wrong to feel anger? Are you someone who feels comfortable being sad or grieving? Or do you try to kind of get out of it and fix it, or get away from that feeling? So being curious about the ways that we react, especially to uncomfortable feelings, can sometimes help you navigate survivor guilt. So I am going to stop sharing and just want to open it up to reactions or thoughts or anything that resonated as we were just going through some of that. Jackie, please.
What resonated with me is like, I feel like I've lost myself, my old self. I used to meet the world head on, adventurous, busy, athletic. And I'm just this slug that is stuck at home, and I'm afraid to go outside even. I have so much fear that's built up and I don't know where it's going. And I can't, they say you need to exercise because it'll make you feel better. And I can't exercise because I have chemo fatigue so bad. And it just puts up these roadblocks. And then I wonder, where am I going with this? What am I going to be when I'm done? Just this boring person who's afraid to go outside. You know what I mean? It's just really changed me and really worries me about who am I going to be now? And the prognosis for me is good. I have colon cancer, but we're doing good. We're doing good. And I'm looking for April, mid-April, maybe I'll be off chemo and we'll see then, but I don't know what's going to happen. How do I find myself?
Thank you so much, Jackie. I think that I think there's so much power in just identifying that there's loss in this, right? That it is for many people the loss of who they were, the identity that they had created, that cancer can take parts of that away. And I think it's important to give space and time to recognize that.
This is Artie. I really feel that, you become someone else. And people keep saying, well, you want to get back to your old self or put this behind you. And, they keep.
Oh, Artie, I think you're breaking up a little bit.
To myself. Oh,
Artie, I
the
think you were breaking up.
chemotherapy
Oh, there you go.
The chemotherapy gave me heart failure. So I'm not going to be the person, that I was. I'm going to be somebody else. But it seems like so many people want you to be your old self and tell you, you're going to feel the same, but you're not. I don't think. And I think the worst part was in chemo. Yeah, I didn't feel like exercising whatsoever, and I didn't. And now, I'm trying to get stronger, but that's something that I feel like would be so helpful and you need someone, I think, to help you. You can't really do it on your own so much of the time, mentally and physically. So that's a real need. Where do you live, Jackie? Are you in Omaha?
I live in Alaska.
Oh, well, I'm not coming to Alaska. Sorry.
I'll come over to your place and we'll exercise together. May I make a comment about something you said? When people talk to me like that, I feel like they negate everything that I feel and have said or something like that. And it happens every time. Like, especially they'll go, oh, you're strong, you'll be fine, or whatever. And it totally negates how I feel, and it kind of makes me angry, but I don't want to say anything. But inside I get all kind of tied in knots because it's like, I need a punching bag.
I tell them when they say you're going to get back to your old self or whatever, and I say, well, that's not going to happen. But they just don't understand, I guess, because they haven't been in that situation. And I think of a lady from my old church. She had a lot of money, and I don't know if anybody, when she came carrying And they would come and get her at the end and like carry her out. And everybody kept saying, she looks so good. You know, she looks so great. And I'm like, yeah, but she can't walk. You know,
Right.
but people
Yes. Well, and
Right.
I think what
see
you're
that.
saying is so, it's so important, right? Like that there are these messages that we get from people who are maybe trying to be supportive or trying to be helpful, but the message is, hold on, well, you shouldn't feel that, right? So like the shoulds don't just come from us; they also come from society and even our friends and family. And I think what you say, like, you're exactly right. Like this experience for most people has shifted and changed them so that they won't be the same person. That doesn't mean that they won't be any of the same person, right? But that things will change. And I see in the comments also, like Sharon saying, you know, it's a hard pill to swallow, right? That people can't understand. They can't understand. And I think it does take, like, it's okay to be angry when some people, when folks dismiss it. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of control over what other people do. So what I encourage you to do for yourself is not dismiss it, right? Because I think that's where the guilt can come in, is like, other people might say you look great and that you're strong, and they might invalidate your experience and your feelings around your experience, but you don't have to, right? You can honor the fact that this has been a struggle. I see a few people with hands up. Paulette, I know you've had your hand up for a while. Do you want to jump in?
Well, yes and no. My survivor guilt is a little different. I was diagnosed in May with DCIS, and it was early, and compared to many of your stories and to people, I went to some support groups and I heard just the horrendous things that people go through. And so I feel guilty that mine was so easy and it was rectified so early, although in the process I lost both of my breasts. And so it really wasn't easy. And yet I didn't have to do chemo and I didn't have to do radiation. And, you know, I just feel like, well, and my friends, I have wonderful friends and they were so supportive and everything, but then I felt like an imposter. It was like, you're feeling so sorry for me because I have cancer, but I don't have. In fact, a nurse practitioner, or not nurse practitioner, but a nurse navigator at one of the hospitals here in Lincoln said DCIS isn't even considered cancer. So I said, really, then give me my breast back. You know, I mean, why did I go through this? But it wasn't so bad. So then I feel like an imposter, like I should just keep my mouth shut, because even now, I mean, I was going to pull my hand back down. I thought, oh God, no, there it is. You know, they have real problems and I don't. Where in the
Paulette,
process,
exactly what you're saying, like that is the perfect example of survivor guilt, right? Because like you lost your breasts and you went through something that has changed you, and you have every right to feel all the feelings that you're having, and that can be separate from what other people have experienced, right? It's
well,
like
the
it's that
problem with
and
that-
again.
The problem with that is that I can't seem to validate my own experience then. And so I've been dismissing it. And now I'm stuck in this horrible depression and can't find my way out of that. And again, I'm thinking, what's your problem? This was no big deal. What are you doing? You know, and I just don't know what to do about it.
But I think in one of the things that you brought up, which we're going to hopefully, I'll give a few more comments with the hands raised and then just go to what to do about it.
Okay.
But I think you said it so importantly that you're not validating yourself, and even the way, like this idea of self-talk. What's your problem? Would you ever say that to a friend?
No.
Right. And so I think we really need to be very mindful of the ways that we are, what our inner monologue, what our inner self-talk says to ourselves, because that can continue us, can keep us in this cycle, the cycle of grief, the cycle of guilt, the cycle of depression. Because no, you would never say to a friend, what's your problem? Right? You would be empathic, you would be compassionate, you would say, of
Yeah.
course you're upset. Of course this is hard. Of course this is an adjustment. So we'll get to part of the what to do is really to start with that. And I hope you look at some of the chats, because there's lots of people who are understanding. Doreen, do you want to jump in? I see you have your hand up.
Oh, I'm on off mute. I didn't even know. I apologize. I wanted to say, first of all, to those of you who feel guilty for not exercising, you can just erase that from your mind right now, because I only made it through a little over a third of my chemo, and it affected my intestines, and I was flat in bed for 10 days out of every 2 weeks. And I was in my first counseling job, and I could only work 2 days every 2 weeks, and eventually was terminated, unfortunately. But so, and I remember going to a event at the cancer support community and meeting a gal who was paying for the stuff to keep her hair, and she was jogging every day. And then I met a young mother who just wanted to forget the whole thing and get past it and get back to her being a mom. And so what we see the ideal cancer patient doing isn't necessarily what all of us are getting to do. And it's like whatever you do get to do, to be grateful for that, and look for the gift in it. And I did go to a support group that Sister Hilda does, and there was a number of colon survivors, and I was just looking at how happy and healthy they looked, and I'm like, and I just had breast cancer. I didn't even lose my breast, but so why am I the depressed one, you know? So anyway, I just wanted to make that shout out to you all who are going through treatment now, and whatever they say you should be doing, don't there are no shoulds in this journey. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. Judith? Oh, Judith, you're on mute. There you go.
I found myself, just like others have said, feeling angry and distressed about what other people were saying to me, well-meaning, but upsetting. And then I remembered all the stupid things I've said to people over the years, not knowing and thinking I was being supportive. And so I decided to grant them some grace. I'm not always really good at it, but it has helped a little bit.
Thank you. And
Oh,
Marilyn?
Marlon.
There we go. I was just, and then again, I come at this from a little different. When I was first diagnosed, I was in 2020, and then in 2021, I call it my black hole year, because I could do nothing. I was waiting to die. That's what I was waiting to do, because the cancer is going to come back. And when you talk about the moving, and I did nothing, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to live, so I'm going to make this happen. And I did hardcore physical therapy, and a lot of forcing myself to get out there and walk. Some days taking a shower was an Olympic gold medal day, but when I with Brenda talking about on Facebook, I did a 5K on New Year's Day. It took me almost an hour and a half, and my neuropathy was kicking me in left and right, but I did it. And it's possible. It's very, very difficult to do. And that's something we have to all realize, and we say, give yourself grace. You have to know that, yeah, you know what, you're not the same. But for me, with the survivor thing, because I'm very plugged into the ovarian cancer community here, I'm in Tucson, Arizona. So when someone is newly diagnosed, I meet with them, and I basically text these women every day, and treatment wise, and how are things going. And I tend to internalize a lot. I read about what you're saying, and all that is like intuitive. All your slides so far, to me, seems very intuitive. We all know that, I think, on a certain level. but I need to, how do you actually put that into practice to go from, okay, look, this is how you feel and it makes sense to feel that way and it's understandable to feel that way. And this is the same with how our bodies have changed and things. But how do we make that next, that jump
Yeah.
to say, okay.
Well, I know we only have like 4 minutes left, so I'm going to go through some strategies.
And actually, Kimarie, we end at 15 after, if you're available. I don't know if that got
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Oh, good. I'm glad. Sorry. Did I cut you off? I was just aware of the time and feeling anxious, but.
No, so that's basically what I'm, just, there's got to be a next step to get us, that's what I'm trying to understand, or where I am in my journey at this point, because I have to, I guess I fake it, you put on your happy public face, because you for the women that I'm dealing with, I don't want to, fall apart on them because they need me. I feel more than it's I don't even know if I'm making sense. Like, I need to be strong for them, but at the same time also strong for me, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen.
Can I just jump in and say one thing just before you get it? Because I'm dying to know too. For some of you who don't know, I'm the executive director of A Time to Heal. I'm a 6-year triple negative breast cancer survivor. I can't hardly believe those words are coming out of my mouth, but real quick, I wanted to thank you. I wanted to tell you all, it does get better. It's going to be different. Your journey is your journey. You take your time, but also make sure you express your feelings to folks, because that was something that I remember my son thinking he was funny when I was in the midst of chemo and couldn't get off the couch and was so sick I couldn't eat and lost 30 pounds in 1 month. I remember he said to me, trying to be funny, "Don't be such a sissy." And I went off on him. And I said, "How dare you? How dare you? You have no idea what I went through." And when those words came out of my mouth, I thought, wait a minute. He has no idea what I'm going through because I haven't told him. So think about that, you all, when you're talking about people's expectations. It's okay to say, I just can't do that anymore. I can't host Thanksgiving anymore. I can't do Christmas anymore. And I need your help. I need somebody else to take that over. Wish I could, can't do it. It's okay. It's okay. Things are different, but it's okay. So I just want to jump in and tell you that, and I think that's a lot of this message is, it's okay to feel all the feelings. It's okay to be different now. It's okay. And it's okay to discuss that with friends, with family, because they don't know what to say and they don't know how to help you. And you have to help them understand how they can help you, because they want to so badly. They do. They just don't know what to do or what to say. So help them a little bit. And I think you'll find things get better. So that's all I have to say. Now I want to know how we can help with the survivor guilt, because ladies, I have it too. I have it too. I just lost someone close to me and it just hit me in the face again. And it's something we're going to have to deal with. So let's learn how.
Yeah. Well, and I think I want to just highlight one thing that you said is this idea that I always focus on these two things: expectations and shoulds. Right? So expectations, both, what are your expectations of yourself? What are your expectations of others? And how clear are you in terms of those expectations? And are your expectations what might be causing some of this pain, right? Some of the emotional pain, including the expectation to not have these uncomfortable feelings. Right. So sometimes even here, like there's this idea that the goal is to not feel survivor guilt, or not feel anxiety, or not feel grief, or not feel sadness. And as humans, that's a very difficult expectation, right? We as humans, we in some ways have been given the gift of lots of emotions, which can be, a double-edged sword sometimes. But the goal, sometimes the expectation is not that you don't feel it. It's that you know how to turn down the volume when it gets too loud, when it gets overwhelming, right? So of course, when you are working with someone and providing to support to someone who has the same cancer as you and they die, there is going to be a host of feelings, survivor guilt being one of them, right? So the goal might not be to get rid of the survivor guilt. The goal is, how do you take care of yourself and feel like you have some control so that you can turn it down so it does not overwhelm you to a point where it is destructive. So I think expectations is a big one. And then, as we said before, shoulds, right? Shoulds create judgment. And so, someone mentioned fatigue and exercise, right? How are you saying that to yourself? I should exercise. Right there's a judgment because you're doing something wrong. And then there's guilt, right? Or I know that the doctors have told me that this could be helpful and I would really like to exercise, but my fatigue is getting in the way right now, right? Even the way we say it makes it that there is a problem, fatigue, my cancer experience, that might be preventing me from doing what I want to do, not what I should do, right? What I want to do, what I would like to do. So let me talk a little bit more about this, right? Okay, so when we talk about coping with survivor guilt, the way I look at it is that in some ways, each one of you, there's benefit of developing a toolbox, right? And within your toolbox, within kind of your coping toolbox, there might be 10 or more different strategies that you can pick up and use at different times that will be helpful at different times, right? So I think the one that, in my experience working with individuals who are suffering from survivor guilt, I think the one thing that almost everyone that I've worked with could use some practice on is this idea of acknowledging what you're feeling, the whole range of feelings without judgment, normalizing it, right? It is normal to feel anger. It is normal to feel grief. It is normal to feel sadness. It is normal to feel guilt. Validate it. You have a right to feel this way, right? There's nothing wrong with you. And lots of other people, as you see on this call, are feeling a similar way, and have compassion, right? And so this is a practice that often starts with really paying attention to the words that you use to kind of narrate your own experience, the internal dialogue that you have. Do you have compassion for yourself and what you've gone through? Do you empathize with yourself and what you've gone through? Or is there a little bit of a harsh self-talk? And so a lot of the work comes in, practicing self-soothing, practicing talking to yourself. I often think about having that best friend who always is empathic, or even the ideal kind of friend who is always there to validate you and tell you that it's normal and that you're going to be okay. How can you integrate that so that is the self-talk that you have for yourself? How do you start to say, okay, I'm feeling really guilty right now, and I know it's normal and I know it's uncomfortable, right? But I also know it'll pass. I won't feel like this forever. Like all emotions, they will pass. And so right now, and then it's about, okay, what other things help, right? When you are in the throes of feeling guilt. So first being compassionate with yourself, and then, okay, let's try out what are some other strategies that are going to help. So maybe this idea of seeking non-judgmental support like this, talking to other people who get it, who can say, yes, I feel that too. And it's awful and it's hard, and just being together to share that can be helpful. Some people might find that they need time to grieve, right? They need time to cry. It might be when you're working with someone and they've died, or that you are watching them suffer, you might need to have space to honor that, to be sad, and then there's kind of different strategies. Does writing help? Does journaling help? Does talking to someone help? Does does raising money for a cause help, right? They're kind of figuring out for yourself, is after you're recognizing this and giving yourself compassion and recognizing the feelings that you're having, is there anything that does help you feel a little bit better? Finding ways to express yourself, right? And kind of honoring the fact that your experience is valid, right? And so if someone says, oh, wait, but you should be so grateful, you can say, I am grateful, and this is a struggle sometimes, right? And I feel really sad when I am working with someone and know someone who has died. Right? So in some ways, just as we're talking about it, in most people struggle with conflicting emotions. And so sometimes it's about standing up for yourself and saying, I do have many emotions, and it doesn't always have to just be happiness and gratefulness. So a lot of times when we talk about self-care techniques, and again, this is a very personal experience, but a lot of times it's trying it out. So does deep breathing help? Does listening to music help? Does playing with grandchildren help? Does watching movies help? Is it talking to a friend? Is it just sleeping sometimes? Right? Almost identifying, wow, and I feel so overwhelmed and my emotions are so full, I can go to sleep and sleep for 3 hours and I wake up and I feel a little better. Well, great. Give yourself permission to do that without judgment, right? And notice this is something I'm doing for myself, right? As opposed to, again, this goes back to the self-talk, as opposed to, I can't handle this, I need to go to bed. No, I'm overwhelmed because I'm having a normal reaction to a situation that is really overwhelming and sad, and I'm going to rest, right? Again, like how are you framing it is really important. And then, kind of looking at where you're getting stuck, right? Are you getting stuck in this ruminative cycle, right? Are you waking up at night and just going around in circles and going around in circles? And at that point, what are you telling yourself? And what strategies are you implementing, right? So are you, maybe there's space to try journaling. Maybe there's space to listen to a guided imagery or a meditation. Be curious about what may or may not help. And then there's a few that we talked about, kind of that within a support group, within yourself. For some people, seeking professional support, like a counselor, can be helpful to really understand, okay, is this a struggle with me feeling out of control, right? And maybe I need to work on that. Is this a struggle around me grappling with the fact that life is unfair, right? That I need to figure out? Or is this a struggle with, like, maybe there is space to understand what is meaningful, right? What do you find meaningful in life, right? Studies have shown that cancer patients and survivors, individuals post-treatment, their quality of life is improved if they can kind of get back to what they value, right? Understanding that things have changed, but paying attention to what is important to them, what is meaningful to them, what helps them bring purpose into their life and value into their life, and being able to focus on some of those things can help. I'm going to take it down just to talk a little bit more, and also hear about some strategies that you all have used that do help, right? What are the things that you're doing or thinking, or how are the ways that you're taking care of yourself when you're feeling survivor guilt or any other emotion?
I'm just wondering if we're going to get a copy of that chart that you had. I'd love to have it.
Yes, yeah, Paulette, we'll send out the slides this week in a follow-up email.
Great. Thank you so much.
And thanks, Kimarie, for sharing those with us.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to mention again, as a fellow survivor, to all of you, and I feel like we're all sisters and brothers through this kind of experience. And I have to echo Kimarie's, everything she said here in terms, especially of being easy on yourself. I think we all have a tendency as, parents, friends, lovers, spouses, whatever. We have all kinds of responsibilities we carry on our shoulders. So we have to take joy in the small things. For me, it was just, I got interested in planting flowers, something about new life, something about blooming, growth, just really appealed to me. So that's something simple that I liked to do, that I felt like I could manage early on when I was so fatigued. I understand completely what you're talking about. And I went through chemo and then two surgeries and then radiation, and just could barely move. But take joy in those simple things. And like she talked about, a visit with the grandchildren, even though that will exhaust you, and it just will, but that's okay. Just the small things. I think sometimes too with survival guilt, I'm a very empathetic person, and I try to also think about, well, if I died tomorrow, what would I wish for all of you? I would not want you to grieve and think, why me? I would want you to go out and on my behalf, live your best life. That's what I would want you to do, for sure. So I hope that helps too. I try to think about that a lot.
It looks like Shannon shared in the chat a meditation app that she's used. It's called Insight Timer. Thanks for sharing that, Shannon.
Jackie, yes, please jump in.
Something that works for me is humor. Like on Christmas, I watched my favorite Christmas movie, Die Hard, which will probably surprise some people, but it is so funny to me. And I slept better that night than I usually do, because laughing makes me relax or something. So I've been trying to watch funny movies or read funny books or whatever. And that really helps me. I also make fun of my cancer. Now it's kind of a mask, because underneath I'm not all that happy. But if I make fun of it, it makes me laugh, it makes other people laugh, and it kind of breaks the ice a little bit, and it helps me cope a lot. I don't know what I'd do without it.
Such an important one, Jackie. I'm gonna, the next time I do this, I'm gonna add that as a box, because I think humor and finding ways to laugh sometimes, it really does change. I think it changes like the chemistry in our bodies.
Yeah, I even named my tumor because I found out that my tumor is in my oncologist's refrigerator, and every once in a while they want to do another test. So I gave him a name of Paul because he was like an alien. And so now my husband and I, we laugh about Paul all the time. We talk about him like he's a person. And it really helps to kind of separate yourself from feeling sorry for yourself, because I'm pretty good at feeling sorry for myself. Indeed.
Maria, I just want to honor your time because we're at 1/4 after. I think Brenda, did you want to share anything about the survivorship class to close us up? And I don't mean to interrupt, Kimarie, if you have anything final as well, but maybe Brenda can share something and then we can close off.
Sounds good.
Kimarie, did you want to add anything before okay.
Thank you all. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and talk with you, and just, I know that there's just I've heard just snippets of your experiences, but it's a pleasure to get to know you a little bit, and I hope that you continue to support each other through this journey.
And so don't leave, everyone. So if you have not experienced a Survivorship 101 class, guess what? What you're experiencing right here is really similar in a lot of ways. So you're going to be in a group of folks just like you, going through the same types of experiences, and you're going to be with a professional facilitator. And it is a 9-week session once a week, okay, for about an hour and a half each time, give or take. You will, these sessions are completely free to you, absolutely no cost. We do it over Zoom. So you might be in a class with, again, someone from Alaska or someone even from the Netherlands or the Philippines. You just never know. But it's wonderful to be able to connect to others that are experiencing what you're experiencing and have a wonderful facilitator that is kind of guiding you through the transition from being a patient to being a survivor. But I do think, and I think everyone would agree here that have been through Survivorship 101, the biggest blessing is being able to connect with others that are experiencing the same things you are. I encourage you to go to our website. The easy way to go is the abbreviation of A Time to Heal, which is ATTH.org. And if you go to programs and events, you will see our list of upcoming Survivorship 101 offerings. We are also starting a program that we had a couple of years ago that we have revamped with brand new research called Brain Fog. So those of you that are experiencing chemo brain, you're going to love this program. It is some tools and it's just a wonderful, wonderful program. Frankly, I believe anybody over 50 should take it because it's really it's just really good for those of us that are struggling a little bit with memory and things like that. It's just a lot of simple brain exercises and different tips and tricks to help you through that fog. We'll help you navigate that. Again, completely free. Each one of these sessions comes with a wonderful book that is free for you to keep, and you use it to follow along through your sessions, and you can write notes in it and things like that. So all of these programs are free thanks to generous donors. So I hope you go investigate that, and I hope to see you in an upcoming session.
Thanks, everyone, and a special thanks to Kimarie for all of your expertise on this topic. It's been very valuable for us.
Thank you so much. Everyone be well.
Thanks, everybody.